There is a state of consciousness beyond waking, beyond dreaming, and even beyond deep sleep. It is not a place we visit, but the space in which all experiences arise. The sages of ancient India gave it a name that defies translation: Turiya, literally meaning the fourth. Turiya is not the fourth in a sequence, but the ever-present background behind the other three. It is awareness itself, pure, undivided, and untouched by time. While the waking mind perceives the world, and the dreaming mind creates its own. Turiya is the silent witness, luminous and formless, never asleep, yet never entangled. Modern science is only beginning to scratch the surface of consciousness. But the Vedic seers, thousands of years ago, mapped states of being that neuroscience is just now struggling to describe. EEG readings can tell us when the brain is awake or dreaming, but what happens when the mind dissolves completely and yet awareness remains? This is not imagination. It is not mystical poetry. It is a measurable shift in the vibratory field of consciousness, detectable in advanced meditators, whose brain patterns reveal coherence beyond ordinary cognition. Turiya is not a trance or altered state. It is a return to the ground of being, a substratum beyond thoughts, emotions, or identity. If you've ever glimpsed a moment of absolute stillness, where thoughts pause, time dissolves, and only presence remains, you have touched the edge of Turiya. It is not something to acquire, but something to recognize. Turiya is always here, but we are not. Our attention is scattered in the multiplicity of experience. The sages taught that through disciplined inner work, meditation, breath control, mantra, and withdrawal from sensory distractions, the mind becomes transparent, and the light of the self begins to shine through. If this resonates with something deep within you, leave the affirmation in the comments. I rest in awareness beyond all states. Like the video to support this work, and subscribe to the channel for more explorations of consciousness and truth. To understand Turiya, we must begin by observing the three primary states we all know. The waking state, known as Jagrat, is where we spend most of our lives. Active, reactive, bound by time and space. Our senses gather data, and our intellect filters it through memory and conditioning. It feels real, solid, objective, but it is still a projection of the mind. The dream state, or svapna, continues this projection, but untethered from the physical world. Here, the mind becomes its own creator. Entire worlds are fabricated without material input. Emotions, fear, joy, flight, and fall all arise without external cause. Then comes deep sleep, sushupti, where there is no experience, no thought, no self. A void, a reset, but not unconsciousness in the absolute sense. In all three states, the mind is active in different ways, but in Turiya, the mind is silent. Not dull, but deeply alert. It is a paradox. Awareness without an object, consciousness without content. And yet, from that emptiness, all reality flows. The Mandukya Upanishad, the shortest yet most profound of the ancient scriptures, is devoted entirely to explaining these four states. It says that Turiya is not that which is conscious of the internal, nor that which is conscious of the external, nor that which is both. It is beyond cognition. It is unseen, ungraspable, unnameable, yet it is the self. It is peace, it is bliss, it is non-duality. Why does this matter? Because unless we recognize this fourth state, we remain trapped in cycles of perception, identification, and reaction. We mistake the mirror for the reflection. We forget that awareness is not what we observe, but what allows observation to occur. The ancient sages knew that true liberation, moksha, is not about becoming something new, but remembering what has always been. Turiya is the axis of this realization. It is the timeless witness of change, deathless and unborn. All spiritual practice, in essence, aims to reveal this awareness. Contemporary physics now proposes models where consciousness may be fundamental, not arising from the brain, but giving rise to the brain's appearance. Quantum theories suggest that observation is not just a passive act, but a creative one. That reality, in some strange way, depends on the presence of an observer. Could Turiya be the key to this mystery? If consciousness is indeed the fabric of the universe, then the fourth state is not personal at all. It is cosmic. Your inner silence may be the same silence that gave birth to stars. The implications are staggering. If we can remain conscious in waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, as some yogis have demonstrated, then we are no longer bound by the brain's fluctuations. We are no longer entrapped by narrative. Turiya reveals that freedom is not a future goal, but a present condition, obscured only by distraction. The mind, with all its thoughts, stories, and fears, is like a cloud passing through the vast sky of awareness. Turiya is the sky, untouched by the weather. Turiya cannot be spoken of directly, because language operates within duality, but it can be pointed to, like the space between two thoughts, or the silence at the end of a mantra. It is the gap through which grace enters. Yogic traditions speak of Samadhi, the absorption into pure being, as the gateway to Turiya. But Samadhi itself is not the goal. It is the clearing of inner noise so that the fourth state may reveal itself, not as an experience, but as your true nature. That which never sleeps, that which never changes. When the ancient rashis entered deep states of meditation, they were not escaping the world, they were touching the root of it. From that state, they emerged not with fantasies, but with revelations. Vedas, mantras, sutras, not invented, but heard. This is why the ancient texts are called Shruti, that which is heard. Turiya is the field in which such listening becomes possible. It is not merely a state to reach, but a dimension to dwell in. The timeless dimension behind the ever-shifting play of form and name. Neuroscience, through the study of advanced meditators, has begun to uncover what the yogis always knew, that states of consciousness exist beyond the conventional waking mind. Brain scans of individuals in deep meditative absorption reveal gamma wave synchrony, a rare coherence across different regions of the brain that correlates with clarity, compassion, and deep inner stillness. These are not passive or trance-like states. They are states of heightened presence, where awareness becomes stable and luminous. From the perspective of Turiya, such changes in brain activity are just the outer echoes of a shift in being. While science can observe the effects of meditation, it cannot yet penetrate the mystery of the observer itself. It can measure electrical patterns and neurotransmitter flows, but the experiencer of those phenomena remains elusive. This is the very mystery of consciousness that physics now confronts. If the observer affects the observed, and if the act of attention collapses possibility into form, then the observer, awareness itself, is not a byproduct of matter, but its very source. Turiya, in this light, is not a metaphysical concept, but a recognition that consciousness is not in the body. The body is in consciousness. This understanding radically transforms how we see ourselves and the world. We are not isolated fragments floating in space, but expressions of a unified field of awareness. This is not metaphor. This is the implication of both non-dual philosophy and quantum inquiry. In Vedanta, the formula is clear. Brahman is the ultimate reality, infinite consciousness, and Atman, the individual soul, is not different from it. When Turiya is realized, the separation dissolves. One no longer identifies as a person experiencing the world, but as the field in which all experience arises. Joy and sorrow, birth and death, sound and silence, all appear and vanish within that unmoving presence. In the state of Turiya, there is no ego to react, no mind to divide, no desire to chase. What remains is a quiet bliss, not the excitement of emotion, but the still, luminous joy of simply being. The Chandogya Upanishad describes it as Sat Chitananda, being, consciousness, bliss. This is not poetic mysticism. It is the lived experience of those who have gone beyond the mind, and it is available to each of us, not in some distant future, but here and now, through inward turning, sustained attention, and the courage to let go of thought. Meditation is the bridge, not a technique, but a surrender, not an act of doing, but of undoing. When one sits not to gain something, but to witness everything without grasping, the fluctuations of the mind begin to settle. The deeper layers of the psyche, the dreamer, the thinker, the reactor, all gradually fall silent. In that silence, the presence of Turiya becomes palpable. It does not come and go. It reveals itself when everything else ceases. This is why the sages called it eternal, not in duration, but in its immunity to time. There is an ancient practice in the yogic traditions known as yoga nidra, the yogic sleep. In this method, the practitioner consciously moves through the threshold of waking and dreaming, remaining aware even in deep sleep. At its peak, awareness shines without content. This is not unconsciousness, but consciousness without object, the same state described by mystics, seers, and even certain near-death experiencers. A radiant emptiness filled with presence. The experience of Turiya in Yoga Nidra has been documented to bring profound healing, insight, and a shift in identity, from the limited self to the universal witness. Turiya is not limited by religion or philosophy. It is not bound to India or the Vedas. It is the ground of consciousness behind all paths. In Christian mysticism, it is the still small voice. In Zen, it is the no mind. In Sufism, it is the beloved found in the heart's silence. All traditions point, in their own language, to that which cannot be named. The finger is different. The moon is the same. To realize Turiya is to go beyond all forms and return to what is real, unchanging, and whole. This realization is not abstract. It has practical consequences. A life lived from Turiya is no longer driven by fear or compulsion. The actions of such a person arise spontaneously, rooted in clarity and compassion. There is no longer a struggle to become. There is only being. Decisions are made not from anxiety, but from stillness. Even amidst chaos, the one rooted in Turiya remains inwardly free. This is not detachment in the cold sense, but intimacy with all things, unburdened by clinging. The journey toward this awareness is not linear. There are moments of insight, followed by confusion, times of deep peace, followed by agitation. But slowly, through sincere effort and surrender, a shift begins. One begins to notice the awareness behind experience, not just during meditation, but in daily life. While walking, eating, listening, speaking, the witness presence begins to emerge. This is the dawning of Turiya in ordinary consciousness. The sacred begins to infuse the mundane. The background becomes foreground. You do not need to escape the world to know Turiya. You need only escape the illusion that you are separate from it. The body may age, the mind may change, the story may twist and turn, but you are not the body, not the mind, not the story. You are that in which all of them unfold. That stillness you have touched in rare moments of clarity, that is you. That is Turiya. It is not a destination. It is your original nature, waiting to be remembered. If this awakened something within you, support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and writing the affirmation in the comments. I rest in awareness beyond all states. Let us walk this path together, back to the source